Next week, the House Oversight Committee members are set to undergo a classified briefing on unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP, also known as UFOs. That's according to Axios. The exclusive briefing for committee members scheduled for January 12th and will take place in the Office of House Security, according to information from two sources familiar with the situation, and a notice reviewed by Axios.
Dr. Peter Skafish, co-founder of the Soul Foundation, a new think tank that was established to advance wider understanding of UAPs, is here with us to discuss the upcoming briefing and UAP politics more generally. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate your coverage of the topic.
It is our pleasure. Let us know what we can or maybe should expect out of this hearing.
Well, I don't think you should expect fireworks out of this hearing, and I don't think you should expect much in the way of a disclosure from Congress about this hearing. They're billing this as a hearing in which they're somehow conducting it at the top secret SCI level, which means that the Inspector General of the intelligence community may be able to share with them some, broad details about the investigation he conducted about David Grush's whistleblower complaint. But there's an important thing to understand that I don't think is getting covered in the reporting on this. The Inspector General of the intelligence community has has a special relationship to Congress, but it's with the Senate and House Intelligence Committees, and they have jurisdiction over intelligence. So the House Oversight Committee they've had to do some work, I think, to establish a relationship here with the Inspector General, and he's going to have to respect the fact that the other committees aren't going to really like this kind of interaction. And additionally, I think most of the folks on the House Oversight Committee aren't really customarily cleared or the equivalent of cleared to get that kind of information.
So you're saying that because of clearance levels, we're only likely to get a kind of top-level superficial understanding of what evidence there is to support David Grush's claims, but not anything more specific, pointed images, videos, accounts from eyewitnesses and the like?
Yeah, indeed. I think that's what's going on. But look, what's important about this, we have to kind of step back from the event itself and look at what this is in a process that's been underway since 2020. The legislative branch of the United States government it has been effectively cut out of the UAP activities and programs in the intelligence community and the Department of Defense that Congress's own legislation alleges are there or asserts are there. And so this is one of a number of steps that that Congress has taken to basically try to reassert their rights with respect to the executive branch. This is an issue of enormous significance, and we're in the absurd situation of most of Congress doesn't believe it's real, and what activity there is in Congress isn't really fully supported by the executive branch.
Right. I mean, the showdown between the legislative branch and the executive branch, on a number of subjects. We talk about this with respect to foreign policy a lot. Our Constitution actually gives the legislative powers to the legislative branch, the decision-making powers, and then the executive is supposed to just carry out those powers. But as our system has kind of evolved over the last 200 years, the executive has tremendous power actually to both propose and then implement policy, which is very frustrating for those of us who want the kind of accountability and the more democratic aspects of the legislature, at least on paper, to take hold so that the American people can understand a lot of this information, which we're now hearing from these numbers of whistleblowers. And I'm so frustrated every time we cover it, because you'll have people alleging information that they don't directly possess, but that they know exists, but that they can't share for various clearance reasons. And I keep joking that I want us all to, everyone who watches this show, we should just all storm the facility where the information is being kept secret, if that is indeed the case, because it's so frustrating that you can't get a straight answer out of anyone due to these clearance issues. It's like, well, who is restricting you? Who needs to sign off on the clearance? Let's haul that person before Congress and get answers from them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, one thing I can say about that, I'll say two things. The first is that given that I've been working on this professionally for 2 years now, I've had a lot of conversations with people from the intelligence community and other parts of federal government who have worked on this on the acknowledged programs on UAP since 2008, but even some people that I suspect worked on the unacknowledged programs that we believe are there. And so I can say with high confidence that it's real, that I would even go so far as to say that by my own standards, I know those programs are there. So second, the question is who's classifying it? How's it classified? Who has jurisdiction? Where is this going on in the executive branch? How big is it? And the fact that we have to ask those questions is why the legislative branch really needs to even go further than it has so far. And so, in that respect, what the House Oversight Committee is doing is it's extremely laudable, even if it's not going to produce kind of immediate results.
Yeah, can you speak to the efforts by particularly Representative Tim Burchett, Representative Anna Paulina Luna, a couple other members of the GOP, and there's some Democrats as well, have talked a lot about this in the media in recent months, which I also appreciate. But it sounds like what you're saying is that they don't have it's not going to result in these massive disclosures that we need.
Well, it may over time result in those disclosures, but even if they were somehow given everything that is in that whistleblower complaint, I have a pretty good sense of the kind of information that's there. They're not going to be able to disclose that to the public. I mean, I know Timothy Burchett is the kind of person that would maybe go right to the limit, but still that's going to be highly sensitive information according to everything I know about this. And so it's much more about the process right now and where it leads. And what I'll also say is that they have rightly engaged in kind of some immediate democratic activity on this, in the sense of this is kind of popular democracy at work, where they don't have the jurisdiction, but they're doing it anyway. And they've listened to Dave Grush. They understand that's credible. They understand he's telling the truth. And so they've just gone ahead and done it. But parallel with them, there's a lot of work taking place in the Senate, particularly on the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and the Senate Armed Services Committee. And it's really the legislation we've seen over the last years. And we now have 8 pieces of legislation that all emanates from those committees. And those are committees that are very powerful. And the members of those committees and their staff they're professionals, and very select professionals, at vetting intelligence and determining when they're being given enough of it or when they're being deceived. So we can have high confidence about that legislation.
Doctor, you just alluded to the fact that you think that you have a pretty high confidence as to what is in the whistleblower report. And so I want to ask you, what do you think is in that whistleblower report? Why do you think you know that that's true? And why do you believe that information, like how did you come to know that information, and why aren't you or others who are also aware of that information able to make those specifics more public?
Well, let me clarify. I don't know the content of the complaint in terms of, let's say, program names or budgetary details or military bases or personnel that are witting. But we understand from Dave Grush that kind of information is there. And no one can do much with that until the complaint itself is somehow made more available to the public. The information in the complaint is made more available to Congress and the public. It's been available to the Senate for a long time now, so that information is there, but it's highly classified. If someone was in the position to have that information, it'd be basically completely illegal. I want to go to disclose it. I want to go back to your initial question about what is there, or how we might describe it. I really believe that is kind of like the Pentagon Papers, maybe not in terms of volume, but in terms of significance, and that it was, except that it was done through a legal process, which means that we're not going to get access to it. To get access to that kind of information, Congress really needs to investigate, and there needs to be a congressional investigation akin to the one in the 1970s that was done of the intelligence community, the Church Committee, which established legislative oversight over the executive branch or over the intelligence community.
With all due respect, I do feel as though a lot of the public, at least, are less interested in the details of where some top secret operation was happening, at what facility, or those kind of state secret type things. They just want to know whether there's proof of extraterrestrial life. I don't care where it's housed. I don't care where the military facilities are. But for all of this conversation suddenly becomes that much more legitimate and meaningful if there is some concrete identification of actual proof of alien life, tissue samples, body, or technology that clearly is from outside of this world.
Space aircraft, right?
Right.
That's what's described. If that stuff is being stored somewhere, that means, people obtained it, the government obtained it. Who are those agents? What is that agency? And we want to hear from that person and show us a photograph of it and confirm what would be the most important development to some people. I would agree with that in human history.
Exactly. Look, the Schumer amendment, which was recently kind of gutted and revised so that it wasn't going to result in disclosures of information to the extent that it was hoped for, did have a flaw, possibly, which was that it was kind of designed for the executive branch to reform the executive branch in order to produce that information. I think Congress needs to do this, and Congress could do this in various ways. By basically forcing the hand of the agencies that probably have jurisdiction over this and just saying, probably by law, we deserve to be broadly informed, not just the committees, and you have to find a way to declassify some things and bring it to us. And we mean business with a very simple law that says all of Congress needs to know.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.